Greetings to the respected subscribers and guests of the channel. Today we have a special topic that touches on one of the most difficult and dramatic aspects of the judicial system. In the entire history of the existence of colonies for life sentence prisoners in Russia, only 3 managed to get their sentences reviewed and be released. In this video, I will tell you about the fates of these people, whose stories are not only a fight for their freedom, but also an example of how the system can sometimes make mistakes, and a person, despite all the difficulties, can find a path to redemption. Alexander Birukov. First on our list is Alexander Birukov. He is perhaps the most famous of all the released lifers. His name became widely known thanks to the documentary film 3 Days and Never Again, filmed in 1997. The film tells the story of Birukov's last meeting with his mother and caused a great public outcry. Alexander was born in 1971 in Saratov. In 1989, at the age of 18, he was drafted into the army and ended up in an air defense unit in Zvenigorod near Moscow. There, in his second year of service, he became a victim of harassment by one of the officers. When Birukov refused to obey and began to fight for his honor, the officer began to humiliate him. At some point, while on guard duty, Birukov could not stand the moral pressure, took off his machine gun and shot his offender. In 1991, he was tried for murder, but the facts about the harassment were not taken into account, because admitting this fact could damage the reputation of the army. He was sentenced to death, and, awaiting his fate, ended up in Butka. However, the country was going through serious changes, and 6 years later, in 1997, after Russia signed a protocol banning the death penalty, his sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. Birukov ended up in the Vologda colony for life-sentenced prisoners, known as Fire Island. That same year, a documentary about him was released. 2 years later, the film attracted the attention of human rights activists, and Birukov became the first person sentenced to life in prison whose case was reviewed. In 1999, the Supreme Court changed the classification of his crime and reduced his sentence to 15 years. In 2006, after serving his sentence, Alexander was released, returned to his native Saratov, got a job as a loader, got married, and became known as one of the most famous former prisoners in Russia. However, his life after his release was not cloudless. He began to abuse alcohol, and his marriage fell apart. In 2009, he stated in an interview that he supported the death penalty for those who commit serious crimes, such as murder or cruel torture. He soon died of a heart attack, and this tragic story ended his life. Alexander Shigolev. At that time, the concept of especially dangerous recidivist was abolished, which became an opportunity for many prisoners to get a review of their case. The first to be released in Beley-Lebed, a colony for life sentence prisoners located in the city of Solikamsk, was Alexander Shigolev. He was convicted of a series of murders, including a double murder, and sentenced to death. However, in 1997, after the death penalty was abolished, his sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. Shigolev began fighting to have his case reviewed, arguing that the new criminal code did not include the concept of an especially dangerous recidivist, and therefore, his sentence was handed down under an outdated law. After 10 years of fighting and numerous appeals, in 2008 the sentence was reviewed and he was released. Shigolev tried to get compensation from the state for the years he spent under the old law, but the court refused. A few years after his release, in 2012, he was back in the dock, this time for the murder of his drinking buddy. In this case, the crime was classified as causing serious bodily harm resulting in death, and he received 12 years in prison. Vladimir Dorokin. Vladimir Dorokin has had an equally dramatic fate. He was convicted of a murder committed in 1995 and was considered a particularly dangerous recidivist. Like Shigolev, he was sentenced to death, but with the introduction of a moratorium on the death penalty, his sentence was commuted to life imprisonment, and he ended up in the same colony, Beley-Swan. Dorokin also wrote numerous complaints and appeals demanding that his sentence be reviewed. In 2009, after changes to the criminal code, his sentence was reviewed and he was released. But, as in the case of Shigolev, his life after his release did not work out. He tried to obtain compensation, but to no avail. After that, his traces disappeared, and it is currently unknown whether he is even alive. The stories of these people are not just odes to freedom, but tragic tales of fighting the system, internal struggle, and changing human destiny. They have gone through many trials, and each of them, despite their criminal past lives, managed to change their destiny in their own way. But the question remains, is it possible to forgive those who have committed serious crimes? Is it worth giving a chance to review the sentence, but forgetting about the victims of their crimes? This is a topic for deep reflection. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you soon in the next videos.